My name is Gina Afen, and as one of the salutatorians, I have the pleasure of introducing to you this year's faculty speaker, a man who has devoted his teaching career to cultivating creativity within his students. This individual has taught many of us, myself included, how to truly embrace our imagination. For that, we shall forever be indebted to him. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jerry Hochberg.
Thank you very much. I was going to wear these, as so many students that I see around the school, but you'll forgive me if I put them down. I've been trying to tell a lot of students that those things keep the world out, and it's about time a lot of you who are going out into the world let the world in. I'm going to darken the lights, and I feel sorry for my colleagues because they won't be able to see the slides. It's really most of the speech, so can we have the lights off? Thank you, Mr. Davies and Dr. Garrett's students. Thank you for this amazing honor and opportunity. I've had little sleep. Since I found out that this rumor of speaking here was a fact, you'll pardon me if I read this. After it's over, you'll party and celebrate, and I will fill a jacuzzi with very hot water, sit in the silence with a candle, waiting for maybe unhappy emails. I've often secretly wished I could have added to what you were told at these events. For many years, I think many teachers have, as you sacred little flowers go out into the unknown. So I'm very amazed and flattered that I have this chance. To those of you that may write a critical note on how fitting or uplifting or appropriate this speech is, I can tell you only life after high school was a good fit for me, and it was rarely appropriate and always surprising. Try as they will, with all the talk, your educators haven't the slightest idea of the way the world will be in the next 5 years, or when you retire in 2056. High school teachers have sat at meetings after meetings trying to put together a course of study that will serve you in the future, but nobody's ever been to the future. The future simply exists as a thought, and all you can really have in this life is a moment and a moment after that. Commencement means to start, so before you start, I want to start and tell you a little bit how I went to Bummerat Hospital to get a better idea, to look at what you looked like when you actually started. I went to the 6th floor of the hospital, which is looking more like an international hotel every day, and looked through the windows of the nursery. The attending nurses actually jumped into some kind of security alert when they saw this hunched up, bald old man taking pictures of those innocent babies. I was trying to tell them that I was doing my homework for this afternoon at ISB. I saw all the shapes and colors. It was amazing. Those faces are already a full expression of life on the level of timelessness. I need to remind myself that you started out like a peanut with a face. A cute peanut, but nevertheless a peanut. And more than that, I had a look at those young parents having this sacred moment, bookmarking the most important, marvelous event in their love with warm, great smiles. You look marvelous. I even thought, like Benjamin Button, I could look marvelous. You are amazing. You're amazing, and today you smell and you look great, and as your parents celebrate this day, I have to say it's kind of ironic that I went into the web, cyberspace, like everybody these days, to get a handle on how to approach this daunting task. Ironic, isn't it? A speech about finding yourself. And I was looking for the answers in cyberspace. I found 10 rules of what to do and 10 rules of what not to do. And after reading the first rule, I slammed the door on cyberspace. Rule number 1 actually was, don't talk about yourself. Incredible. That's incredible. I'm not rich or famous, but in 66 years, myself might be the only truly friend I have here, and the only one I'm just beginning to understand. Are you kidding me? Finding yourself is what this whole speech is about. And anytime I ever listened to a teacher, anytime he got my full attention, it was truly interesting when he was talking about himself. School is wonderful when there is a pulse and a heartbeat to go with it. Books are okay, but they will be there for the second and third printing. The website which has the most attention in the world by young people is constructed about yourself. And it gives you a presence out there in cyberspace. Maybe that's the trouble. That disturbs me, and I have a lot of trouble with that. I think time is better spent human to human, face to face, eye to eye. It is the one reason I have difficulty with email and the way the world is going and the school. Do you think your school and the world has made it any easier for you to find yourself? So forgive me for the next 5 minutes as I remember a terrible, terrible struggle. In my last year of high school, when I went looking for myself. Unfortunately, no GPS can plot these coordinates. For this road, you'll sometimes have to have the easy way, but more often, the hard way. Students who struggle with this school are here today too, some of them on the fringe of ISB. Many of you didn't get awards, and you might be less academic than the school would like you to be. You may have a consciousness and creativity undiscovered in this term. Many of you take my electives and feel the joy of working with your hands, wood, fire, and electricity. In many cases, your parents' dedication should get the award. They vigilantly sacrificed leisure time, pleasure, and money to support you. They had to go the extra distance, and it's hidden away in this polite, privileged community. These parents are here today too, to celebrate a bookmark moment in your life. For them now, they take a deep sigh of relief. And I remember what my mother and father did. Excuse me while I talk about myself. My mother and father should get a medal for putting up with me. During high school, I was a rebel. I remember how repulsed I was when my mother and father talked about money at every meal. My father was a dentist and a surgeon, and I came from a privileged home. The talk at dinner was to make sure that I chose to be a doctor or a lawyer. My father reminded me that he had the money, and I had great hands, and I would make a good surgeon. I should stop playing around with art and electricity. I listened, but I really couldn't wait to return to my cellar where I spent most of my teenage life experimenting with electricity, shocking my little brother, playing with magnetism, and my father's nitrous oxide. I had huge battles with my mother and father over values every day. I was reading Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and the smallest book, but most impressive book, The Little Prince. That last book got me in the most trouble. I was sure it was all you really ever needed to know to get through life. Can you believe we had battles over The Little Prince? Many nights. There was a hardware store across the street from my house, and I was always in there. I loved tools, Mother said, ever since I was a little boy. By the way, My mother is 101 years old. She calls me 6 a.m. in the morning from 18,000 miles away to wake me for school for 21 years working at ISB. Can you believe that? She says the same thing to me since I was a little kid. Rise and shine. Gotta go to school, honey. After reading Thoreau in high school, I decided that it would save my pocket money and buy a big red double-bladed axe like Paul Bunyan. My idea was that after I finished high school, I would take the axe, travel to Maine, build a cabin in the woods where I would live out my life peacefully as a hermit. My mother and father asked about that axe, talked about that axe, talked to me about that axe for weeks. I used to sneak up to the edge of the stairs at night and listen to them down in the kitchen speculating the worst about me and that axe in my room. My mother said, seriously, why does he have that axe? I'm afraid he's going to become a serial killer. In my secret romantic world, I was listening to the extraordinary voice of Johnny Mathis, Nat King Cole, running through snowy parks at night, speculating, dreaming about God, the stars, and the universe, having moments of stillness with the rain. Coming home all wet. I was particularly in love with the somber, late afternoon sun against bare winter trees. I wrote poems about it. All my parents could see was the axe. My world and my parents' world collided week after week when I was a senior in high school, 2 months before my graduation. They had come to their wits' end with me. Long story made short, in those days, 1959, if you had trouble with a teenager and you had means and money, you might take him to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I took a stand. I refused to go telling my parents that no one was going to pass judgment on me. My father had a short temper. In the family, he was referred to as a volcano. If my father got mad, it wasn't much like the parents in this school at ISB. He was old school. And you better shape up or ship out. When my father said, come here, that meant run like hell. We had a lot of squabbles about refusing to take a psychiatric tests. And in a flash, I returned home from high school one day to find the men in white coats in my living room. Before I could say froggy, they jumped on me, put a syringe into me with sodium pentothal. I was free of my belt, my shoes, shoelaces, handcuffed in the back of an ambulance on my way to a private clinic in Belmead, New Jersey. In those days, one way to deal with a difficult teenager under 18 was to commit them to a state hospital and give them electroshock therapy, which I should tell you, friends, really calms you down. If you saw the movie with Jack Nicholson, One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest, from 1975, you totally get this picture. My parents loved me that much, so much, to the tune of $900 a day for 3 weeks in those days. But this is not my sad story of suffering. It is the story of the convoluted individual path that kids and adults take in connecting and arriving and finding themselves. Some later, some sooner, which is always unique and a complex journey and often involves tons of pain, sometimes politely hidden away, even in nice neighborhoods. During class, many students have told me their surprising personal stories. Teachers are sort of lucky that way. We hear all these great stories from kids about their lives. 2 weeks later, I failed the Little Prince, took the test, and was released to finish my last month of high school. During that month in my happy little cellar workshop, I got the idea for an electronic machine that makes color patterns for music. It was bought by a lighting company in New York named Mobile Color and used by Xerox in the New York World's Fair. It lighted the White House Christmas tree for President Kennedy. That invention led to Pratt Institute, Newark State College, with a major in art education. And after substituting in my city's public schools, I found my life's work at 20 years old with my first permanent teaching job. My students call me from the U.S. and are 50 years old now. 28% of my graduating class disappeared in Vietnam, only 90 minutes from Bangkok, from Thailand. I've been in the classroom 46 years, the best 21 right here at ISB. I found myself in Thailand. Thailand's more than the sum of its parts. Often when I leave the country and take that plane and that plane banks to the west, I look down and see the sun glimmering on the water of green rice fields, strange architectural structures, highways. I well up inside with tears. Strangely, I never had that reaction leaving my own country where I was born. Because this is my home. I've found myself here. Like hundreds of you, I deeply love this country. My deepest fear is that something will happen to me when I go home to see my mother, and I won't be able to return to the land of Oz. I know that few Westerners understand this magical place, and that's one of the strong reasons why I love it. Thais see a Farang and say, "Jerry ka ban malai." When are you going home? I answer, this is my home. Na mai mun kun Thai, ta Thai, ho jai mun. My face is not the same as a Thai, but my heart is the same. Thailand is old and young at the same time. Its extraordinary contrast gets such insensitive treatment in the world press. My mother's always calling me, watching CNN and asking me, "Are you all right?" Still worried about me at 66. I have to explain how this kingdom's internal search for democracy is always settling out on the side of fairness. And that is the beauty of these people. If I brought a Westerner from the States to Bangkok, they would smell the perfume of diesel fumes and urine, see the concrete and tiny dwellings, posh designer malls, flowers, benevolent smiles, bounties of food, and have little insight. But in time, like everyone that comes here, they will be truly hypnotized. Thailand's not another country for me. It's another planet. It shaped my life. It helped you find yourself. You grew up here. You experienced a powerful attentiveness to God, subtle gentleness and graciousness, generosity, and amazing creativity. It's part of you now. You'll take it with you when you leave here. Remember what you learned from the people here. Remain refined and courteous. Tell the unconscious world of this extraordinary experience. Educate them. For most people only see through the eye of television. Thai people are your teachers as much as your teachers at ISB. Credit them and remember to say sensitively, "Thank you for these gifts" before you leave. With all certainty, you'll return to this enchanted place sometime. This is my journey. One of thousands, if not millions. In fact, 152 seniors sit before you. Identity disguised in these traditional costumes for this day. Look at their faces. They have been nurtured with the selfless hard work of their parents from all over the world. And the teachers that sit right here from ISB. What flowers you all are. It's your responsibility, your privilege to find yourself. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "You do not change. You do not become more of yourself because there's more of yourself to find." This is the first task, to sit still and alert. Take off your earbuds and your earphones. Pay attention to the stillness in yourself. It's divine. Put aside your iPods. Oh, those iPods. I've been fighting them for years. I was going to do an Apple commercial. Let the world into you now. Stay conscious and alert. You'll find more rhythm in what comes into you than in your music. 44 years ago, a wonderful movie changed my life. It was called 1,000 Clowns, based on a play from 1962 by Herb Gardner. I don't know if anybody remembers it in here. It was about a parent named Murray Burns. Murray reflects the voice of all the parents that are sitting here when he says this: "I got to know what day it is. I got to know what the name of the game and what the rules are without anyone else telling me. You got to own your own days. Name them. Each one of them. Every one of them. Or else the years go by and none of them belong to you. And that ain't just for weekends, kiddo." Murray reflects what he wants from his children, and he says this: "I want him to be more than a Norman nothing. I want him to get to know exactly the special thing he is, or else he won't notice it when he starts to go. I want him to stay awake and know who the phonies are. I want him to holler and put up an argument. I want a little guts to show before I can let him go. I want to be sure he sees all the wild possibilities. I want him to know it's worth all the trouble just to give the world a little goosing when you get the chance. And I want him to know the subtle, sneaky, important reason why he was born a human being and not a chair." So class of 2009, now it's your turn, like my mother says. Rise and shine. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Shen, and I am the Senior Class Vice President. Mr. Hochberg, on behalf of the senior class, we would like to present you with a token of our appreciation.